Welcome to Rose Red Homestead. We are going to have an adventure today with refrigerator rolls. This is a recipe that I have had and used in our family for years and years, ever since my children were very young, and it has been a family favorite. It is extremely versatile. We're going to make several things with the roll recipe so that I can show you the many different ways that it is useful. So we'll get started when we come right back. Here are the ingredients. I have 10 cups of flour right here. Probably won't use all of it, but the recipe calls for 8 to 10 cups. And again, it just depends on the humidity of the day, the temperature, and various variables to see how much flour is used. I have 2 cups of lukewarm water. Now, I have learned not to take a chance with just guessing, and so I have this little thermometer that I use, and this water is between 85 and 88 degrees. It's probably cooled just a little bit, so it's probably down to about 85 degrees. Much hotter than that, and the yeast doesn't work very well, so this is ready for us to use. I have a cup of sugar. I have 6 beaten eggs. That seems like a lot of eggs for a roll recipe, but trust me, this recipe is so delicious, and part of the reason is because of these eggs. And the second reason is because we use 1 cup of real butter, and I've just melted this in the microwave. This is 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 2 tablespoons of instant yeast. Now, the yeast can be tricky for any bread that you make, so be sure that you know the type of yeast that you are using and then judge accordingly how you are going to do it. Now, because this is instant yeast, the first thing that I'm going to do is just pour the yeast right in here into this water, and using a fork, I'm just going to stir it up a little bit because I want to be sure that the yeast is at least a little bit dissolved before I add in the rest of the ingredients. And so I'm softening it and getting it so that it is dissolving in this water. It won't be fully dissolved, but it will be enough moistened so that it will quickly mix in with the rest of the ingredients. So I'm now going to pour this yeast water right in here to my KitchenAid mixer. Now, you may notice that the beater that I have is not the bread hook, but rather it is just the plain flat beater. And there's a reason for this, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So I'm going to raise the bowl and turn it on just ever so slightly. I'm going to next add the sugar, 1 cup of sugar, and the 1 cup of butter, and now the 6 eggs. So this is all of the liquid that is now in the mixer, and it's all mixed together, and we're ready to start with the dry ingredients. Whoops, here's a little sugar that didn't get in the bowl. Now I'm just going to add the flour, and on this first thing of flour, I'm just going to put the salt in that first cup, mix it a little bit, and then I'm just going to add the flour from the side. Just going to do it 1 scoop at a time, and the consistency that we are going after is thick peanut butter. Once we get there, we're done with the mixing part. So notice that it's all lumpy right now, and that's just fine. It will smooth up as we add more flour. And because I've pre-measured my flour into this bowl, I don't have to measure it as it's going in because I'm going to use judgment on how much to put in ultimately. So now it's thickening up there with the flour. The ingredients are mixing better. Still way too runny. The great thing about this recipe is that you mix it up on the first day and then it goes into the refrigerator overnight. And then the next day, that's when you begin shaping it. And we'll be shaping it and mixing it into 5 different variations. I can't wait to show you those. Now look what's happened to our dough. Everything is all mixed together. It's still a little bit too sticky, so I'm going to add a little bit more flour. And wait till that gets incorporated before I add more. It's getting very close to what we want. A little bit more. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Okay, so this is pretty perfect. Now I can pinch it. It forms little mounds when I pinch it. It doesn't stick too much to my fingers. And so this is just about the right consistency. This is perfect to what I want. So notice that the reason that we did not use the bread hook was because with the bread hook you would not get this kind of mixing at this point. So I'm going to drop that. Now this is how much flour I have left from 10 cups. So that was probably about 8-9 cups of flour that we put in for this morning, because I never know from one time to the other what amount of flour it's going to take, between 8 and 10 cups. I have this plastic bowl and I have sprayed the inside with some of that spray Pam stuff, and now I need to get this beater out, remove the dough, and everything has been mixed together. It is all one consistency all the way through. I can release it completely from the beater. It doesn't stick to the beater. And now I can just pour it right into this bowl. And because it will rise in the refrigerator overnight, I have a nice sturdy lid that goes on this. Lock it into place so that it will contain the dough. And tomorrow when we come back, I'll show you what we do to make 5 variations of this dough. So I'll see you in the morning. It is a bright, beautiful fall morning. Our lawn is getting covered with the yellow leaves from our poplar trees, and that'll be great because I'll get to use those leaves for our garden. I just got our roll dough out of the refrigerator in the garage, and even though it's a little lopsided, you can tell that it has risen a little bit, and so we know that the yeast is active. It's also quite hard, obviously because it's been in the refrigerator overnight. Now, one of the things that I did not tell you yesterday was that this recipe makes 6 dozen rolls. And you may be going, that's way too much for our family. Well, it was almost way too much for our family, but when we were all together at home, and I would make these for Sunday dinner sometimes, and certainly for special occasions and holiday times. For instance, at Thanksgiving, I would make a full batch, 6 dozen rolls, and it would be enough for dinner for everybody, and then the following day there would be enough rolls to have little turkey sandwiches and that sort of thing. You can easily half this recipe. I've used this recipe for many variations, and I'm going to show you 5 different ways that I do it. Now, normally I don't make one batch and do it 5 different ways. So this is an illustration of the possibilities. So we are going to do regular dinner rolls and then orange rolls. Then we'll do cinnamon rolls and orange buns. And then I'm going to do what we call our cinnamon ring, which is a beautiful little Christmas bread that I often use to give to neighbors and so forth. So knowing that it's going to make 6 dozen rolls regularly, I always cut this recipe into 6, this big lump of dough. And because it's really hard and it's been in the refrigerator, it makes it really quite easy to cut through. And that way I'm using 1/6 of the dough with each thing I make. If I really wanted to be accurate, I could get my scale out and weigh these lumps to be sure that each one is about the same as every other one, because obviously these are not going to be the same. But that's okay. So we're going to start with regular dinner rolls. And so for regular dinner rolls, I'll take one of these lumps out. And the dough is very easy to work with at this point. And I'm going to set this aside for now. And I'll bring this roll to the countertop and sprinkle some flour out. And then I'm forming this into a circle. And I'm going to roll it out. Now, for dinner rolls, you can use any shape you would like. Our family loves crescent rolls, and that's what I always do with this dough. It is so easy to do crescent rolls. So I just roll it into a circle, as much of a circle as possible. And I like to leave it a little bit thick. Now it generally takes, whatever I do with this dough, 3 hours or so to rise. So when I do it for Christmas and Thanksgiving, I always have to count for that much of the time in my day of preparation. Okay, so that's about right. So the next thing I do is I have melted 1 cube of butter. And so 1 cube of butter needs to be enough to put on 6 different batches of dough. So I use about 2 tablespoons from my regular cutlery, and I just spread the butter around. Now because the dough is cold, that butter has started to set up, and that's just fine. So now I'm going to take my pizza cutter and I'm going to cut this into 12 different pieces. So fourths, and then in each fourth I will cut thirds. So I have a total of 12 little triangles. And then it's an easy thing to just roll these up. Starting from the back side, I just roll. And then I will put them right here. And these baking trays will hold 24 rolls. So we're going to do 1 batch of regular and 1 batch of orange rolls. So I'll finish shaping these and then we'll come back when we're ready to roll out the orange rolls. A really nice dinner roll variation is orange rolls. So they have a little taste of orange and they are so delicious. So I've rolled out another circle and I'm ready to put the butter on it. These, of course, are going to be a little bit sweeter because I'm going to add a sugared topping or a filling on the inside of the roll. All right, so I have here the zest from 3 oranges, and I'm going to take about half of that zest. I want to save half of it for the icing that is going to go on the orange buns, and I'm going to take probably a good tablespoon and a half of this orange zest, and I'm going to mix it in with this sugar. And so this is like what you would do if you were making cinnamon rolls, only instead of the cinnamon, you're putting in the orange zest. And so mixing it in with the sugar, and we'll just give a light coating of this on top of the butter and it just makes the most delicious orange rolls. These rolls will end up to be, if they turn out right, the way I'm hoping that they do, the way they usually do, they'll be very light and fluffy. And these are fun to take also if you have to furnish rolls to a party. These rolls are great to take to party situation. They're also very nice for Christmas potlucks or anything like that. They're just a little bit fancier. Okay, so this is very well mixed, and notice that it's kind of orangey. So I'm just going to lightly sprinkle some of this on top of the butter. And we'll be using more of this in just a minute too, so I'm not going to use all of it. And so this is a buttery, sugary, orangey mix. And then I do essentially the very same thing. There's a bare spot right here. With my pizza cutter, I'm going to cut it into 12ths, first 4ths, and then each 4th into 3 segments. And then roll it up from the large end in the back and tuck the end under and put it right here. So I'm going to finish doing this and then I'll bring you back for the next step. Okay, so here is what our tray of dinner rolls looks like. We have 12 regular dinner rolls and 12 orange rolls. So I'm just going to, and I rearrange the roll. I turn them this way and then that way and try to figure out the best way. Every time I do this, it's like a puzzle. So that's my final version of what is going to happen. And so I'm just going to put a tea towel over the top, and now we'll set this off to the side so that they can spend the next couple, 3 hours rising. And you notice here that this time I have a rectangular piece rolled out. So I shaped the dough, instead of in a circle, I shaped it in a more of a brick. And then I rolled it out because I'm going to just be making some regular cinnamon rolls. And here's how we do that. And so this roll recipe is really good for cinnamon rolls as well. So there's our couple of tablespoons and a little bit more of the melted butter. And of course, my children loved it when we turned some of the roll dough into cinnamon rolls. Now this time I think this is probably about 1.5 cups of sugar. And frankly, I don't measure when I put the cinnamon in. I just dump the cinnamon in until it looks the right color. Probably not a good idea, but I've been doing this for so long that, you know, that was probably a couple of teaspoons of cinnamon. I like the cinnamon to be not faint. I like it to be rich and plenty of it. So I'm going to add just a little bit more. We like our cinnamon rolls really cinnamony. And then all I do is just take this cinnamon sugar mixture and just sprinkle it on the top of the butter. And then I'll smooth this around just a little bit, try to even it out some. And then I'll roll it up from the back side. Doesn't need all that flour on it. Into this little long snake looking thing. And then I'll just take my scissors and trim off the ends so that they are even. Okay, now we're ready to cut and place them on this baking sheet. And sometimes if it's not even all the way around, I'll stretch out a little piece, kind of trying to even it out so that they're all approximately the same size. Okay, so I'm going to cut this in half, and I really prefer to do this with scissors. And again, I'm aiming for 12. So I'm cutting it in 4ths, and then each 4th 2 more cuts, so it leaves 3 cinnamon rolls. It makes it so easy just to use scissors, and I'm making sure that I'm dragging the blade of the scissors right on the countertop so I don't have any little snippets of dough. So here's a baby one, and when I would make baby ones, the children would always claim ownership of what they call the baby. Okay, so I'm going to put these apart on the tray here. And we'll also have a dozen of these cinnamon rolls. And then I'll come back when we're ready to do the next one. Completed 3 of the 6 glops of dough. So here's our 4th. Now we're more than halfway finished, and it's only taken us like 10 minutes. So I'm spreading butter on another oblong, and this time instead of cinnamon rolls, I'm going to be making the orange buns. Not dinner rolls, but rolled out like cinnamon rolls. And so again, I'm going to be using the sugar with the orange zest in it. And oh my gosh, these are heavenly. We will frost these with some buttercream frosting with a little bit of orange juice in the icing, and also some more of the orange zest. And it's just a fabulous, fabulous baked good. Okay, and so rolling up from the back again. And then I need to stretch this one out to make sure that I can get 12. And even off the ends. And here we go. So this is the same procedure as I did with the cinnamon rolls. So I'm going to finish these and get them on the tray, and we'll bring you back when the tray is all finished. So here is our tray with a dozen cinnamon rolls and a dozen orange buns. And so I will cover them with this tea towel, and we'll set them out to rise. And again, it's going to take 2 or 3 hours for them to get up to the size where we will want to bake them. And so now we're going to be doing a cinnamon ring. And so we start out pretty much exactly like the cinnamon rolls. This butter is starting to congeal again. Our kitchen is a little cold, but it will be fine. And then I sprinkle with cinnamon sugar. These are such a lovely gift to take around to people in the holidays, to have on hand in case company stops by. And these do freeze quite well after they're done as well. I've had some in the freezer for, 2 or 3 months before. Okay, now roll this up like a cinnamon roll. And stretch it so that it's important on this one that they're as much the same size as possible. Now here's what's a little bit different about these. So this needs to be formed in a ring. And I'm going to just again cut off the little ends to make them even. And I'm going to put this on one corner of this and bring it together. So I have what looks now like a donut. And I'm now going to snip just like a cinnamon roll, only I'm not going to cut all the way through. So notice what I do. I leave about that much that I'm not going to cut through. And I'm just going to go around. I'm not so concerned with having exactly 12 on these. Works out to be approximately 12. but I'm more interested in them just being nice and even as I rotate this around. I'm looking ahead and I'm trying to calculate how many more I need to make. So I think I'm going to do this and this. Okay, now starting here where the break is, I'm going to start turning this under. And I'm turning each one so that it is under the one in front of it, so that the pretty rings show. And they're tilted on their side. I sometimes will do these in pie plates. I need to get this away from the edge because they're going to rise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, what do you know? We turned out with a dozen anyway. And sometimes if I go inside and just kind of push like this, then it gets them exactly the way that I would like for them to do. So that's a cinnamon ring. Now wait until it gets all baked. They are gorgeous. So I'm going to do the last bit of dough for an identical one on this other side, and then I'll bring you back. So this has taken us about 15 minutes, and we have all 6 pieces of dough into 5 different variations. We have 2 cinnamon rings, and we have a dozen each of regular dinner rolls, orange dinner rolls, cinnamon rolls, and then the orange buns. So I'm going to cover these, and I'm going to bring you back when these have all proofed and are up to the size that we are ready to put them in the oven. So I'll see you in 2 or 3 hours. Here we are. Everything is out of the oven. Our kitchen just smells fabulous, just like a bakery. So here are the rolls, the dinner rolls. These are the regular rolls, and these are the orange rolls. They're a little bit more lumpy because of the orange zest that I put in there. So anyway, these are all finished in a beautiful golden brown. And the bottoms are also a very nice brown as well. That's one thing when you bake rolls, you want to be sure that the bottoms are nicely browned. Here are the cinnamon rolls, and I left 4 of them on each side open without frosting them so that you could see that these just expanded to fill up the entire pan. So these are the cinnamon rolls, and these are the orange buns. Now this is just buttercream icing, just a plain buttercream icing with a little vanilla in it. This is that same buttercream recipe, but instead of using cream, I used orange juice to flavor and then added the orange zest that I had left, and that's what turned it this yellow color. This is not food coloring at all. This is just the natural orange coloring. And these are really, really delicious. Now here is our cinnamon ring. This one is all decorated, and I left this one so that you could watch me while I put the final decorations on it. I talk decorations like this is a Christmas tree, but I usually do these at Christmas time and then take one to each of our neighbors and then deliver some out in the extended neighborhood as well. So I guess it does remind me of Christmas for sure. Now these are just these are pecans, half pecans, and then I am putting maraschino cherries that I've drained on a paper towel. You could also use the candied cherries that are available at Christmas time. I just happen to love maraschino cherries. So I cut them in quarters and then drain them so that the juice doesn't bleed. So here we have it, 5 different variations on the same refrigerator roll recipe. So make this recipe and have fun, experiment, do different things with it. You can shape rolls differently. It's such a nice, lovely, basic recipe that is naturally sweet, that it does a really great job with sweetened breads and also with the frosting as well. So this is a very versatile recipe, and I hope you find it useful. Thank you for joining us on this video, and please subscribe if you haven't already. We'd love to have you along on our adventures. So until next time, we will say goodbye and have a great day.